There's been plenty of short to medium term volatility in silver in recent months. But if we go back over, the last 7 months or so, the price of silver at $26 is trading where it was in early August. So are we going to see silver finally build some sort of sustainable trend upwards? Or actually, is it destined to remain something of a boring market in the months ahead? I know silver is always a popular one on the channel, so I thought we'll take a look at it again. We've seen some great moves over the last 12 months. The big move clearly off the March lows around $12, trading up to $30 in August of last year. Then we had this period of sideways trading. We had a bit of excitement late January into February when the rumor or suspicion or whatever it was that perhaps it was going to be the next target of Reddit and Wall Street bets. We saw the price gap up towards the end of January, very briefly test above $30, but then it's pulled back into the range. I often refer to it in the live streams as something of a boring market. And I think that does get borne out if we look at what the price action is doing. We do still have, I think anyway, a recovery going on for silver from the late November lows. So I think overall the bias is still positive. But as usual in this video, I'll talk about some analysts' expectations for this year for silver. Massive spread in where the experts think we could see silver. Then we'll come back onto it and see if there's a trading opportunity. We do have a couple of trades running on silver at the moment from previous videos from February and March of this year, and they're underwater. They're losing money. They're not near the stop losses at the moment, but as a reflection of, I think, what's been going on with silver, they're sort of up 1 week, down the next. So I'll talk a bit about why we're seeing perhaps something of a tug of war going on with the price of silver at the moment. Is it likely to change? And we'll come back and look at this in more detail and see where the opportunity might be. Hello, I'm David Jones from Capital.com, and I thought we'd do an update on the price of silver. It's been a pretty volatile year, but it hasn't actually gone anywhere if we look at it since the end of last year. So I thought in this, let's look at it in more detail. What's going on? What some of the forecasts are? There's a massive range of forecasts from analysts for silver for this year. Then jump back onto the platform, look at things in more detail, and see if we can get a trade on. As usual, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, if you could subscribe, that'd be great. It helps support the channel. And we now do these regular live streams on a Friday, 2:30 UK time. If you're subscribed with the alarm bell notification pushed, you get a notification off YouTube just as we're about to go live. Anyway, let's get into it and look at silver in a bit more detail. So it's been anything but a boring year in silver, sort of week to week. We've seen massive volatility for the year so far. We've seen it trade as low as $24, trade briefly above $30. So we've seen more than a 20% swing for silver, and we're not even 3 months into the year. But actually, if we look at where we're trading now compared to where it was at the end of the year, it's flat. There's no change. So a lot of noise, but no direction, I think, is the best way of describing what's gone on with silver this year. There's quite a bit of bullish talk around silver. The industry body, I've mentioned it before, the Silver Institute says that as economies get back to normal, then demand for silver, industrial demand and everything else could hit an 8-year high this year. So you would expect that to pull the price up. And there's more bullish commentary on top. The London Bullion Market Association forecasts silver to be the best performing metal in 2021. It's not the case so far, but that's their overall outlook from a survey of analysts. The most bullish forecast for this survey was $55 for silver. That's more than double than where it's trading now. The most bearish forecast was for silver to end the year sub $17. So we've got a massive spread there in terms of forecasts, which maybe shows, what a difficult market it is at the best of times. Not that any market is easy. So a wide spread of analyst forecasts. But the key points that are picked up on are quite interesting. We talk about them all the time. So for the consensus is from this survey that low to negative interest rates will be a key driver for silver. There's no surprise there. We've had low interest rates, negative interest rates in some areas for a number of years now. That makes the dollar, the US dollar, traditionally less attractive, helps lift the price of silver when people are looking for homes for their money. And of course, the other point cited in the survey is a weaker US dollar. Now, but with both of these 2 points, I think we do have some concerns because both of those points are not certainties for the year ahead. We've already seen markets in recent weeks get spooked as bond yields have jumped. And the concern is that perhaps investors and central banks are underestimating the impact of inflation further down the line. And the classic way of combating inflation is to raise rates. So I think there's still a lot of uncertainty as to where we're going to be as the year goes on in terms of interest rates, the US dollar, and inflation. Plus, of course, industrial demand plays its part as well. If we see industrial demand pick up, assuming that the vaccine rollouts continue, we see economies get back to normal, that should also help the price of silver. But I think that there's a lot of uncertainty. I found it a difficult market and quite often a boring market this year to trade. Maybe things are going to change. We do have a trend in silver. More about that in a second. But first of all, let's talk about the levels to watch. We've seen a fairly tight range recently. I think the most immediate hurdle from the 1st of March, beginning of the month, is just above $27. We saw a rally up to there. We saw that fail. But we do have, fairly solid support the other side of $25. So running from $24.65 in January and to $24.80 more recently. And it is, at the moment at least, trapped a bit between these points. Is this going to change? Let's take a look on the platform, look at it in more detail and see where the opportunity might be. I thought we'd start off with a longer term view for the price of silver. This is each candle on this chart is a weekly candle. I've got it going back to about 2009. But I thought what was interesting, that most bullish forecast for this year, silver at $55, so up here somewhere. So that would be taking out the 2011 high. So a 10-year high is what analyst expects for silver this year. I think that's a little bit too optimistic. It'd be great if it did go up that much, but personally, I can't see it myself. And you can see the recovery down here. We'll flip it over to a daily in a second. It does still look like that is chugging along, but it has stalled since August. Let's change this to a daily chart. So this is where we are. This is that recovery in more detail. So we have the lows in March last year, almost 12 months ago now, down briefly below $12. The market recovered, as we saw plenty of other markets recover, of course, after that initial coronavirus-inspired sell-off, surged up to 30 in August. And since then, it has been sideways. It's been a big sideways range, no doubt, trading as low as 22 and then back up to 30 again in early February. So some massive swings in the price of silver, sort of, 30, 40% swings, but actually trading where it was, back to July of last year, late July of last year. So for me, I still think the bias is up. If you've watched the other videos, you know that, a big fan of following trends. The definition of an uptrend is a succession of higher lows, and we can see them here on the chart, and higher highs. And we just about had a higher high in late January of this year on that gap up briefly through $30. So even though looking at the trend line that I've drawn since March, it's dropped below it since March last year, it's dropped below it in March of this year. I think just because a trend line breaks doesn't necessarily mean that trend is over. It just means that maybe it could mean we're going to go up. I'll continue the trend at a slightly lower rate. So I'm still bullish on silver. I've put a 20-day moving average on there. That's that green line that we have here showing the average price for the last 20 days. Clearly, it gets updated every day. And because the price has been fairly sideways since October last year, we've seen the price just flip-flopping around that moving average. It's currently trading, you can see, just below the moving average. The high of the day so far looks like it touched that moving average. So I don't think we're getting too much off the moving average there. If we take a look at the RSI down here, in sideways moving markets, RSIs do tend to perform better. If we pick up on some of the points where the RSI has gone oversold in the last 6 months or so, or near oversold at least, it's not done too bad a job in calling the turning points in this market. So we last nudged near oversold on that trip back briefly below $25 in the first week of March. So for me, what would I do here? We have the open trades. I don't really want to add to those open positions. We've got 2 existing open positions on silver. If I didn't have a trade on, I'd still be a buyer. I'd still be looking to follow this overall trend that's been going since March. My only question would be, well, where's my stop loss going to go? The most aggressive place I put my stop loss would be the other side of the March low so far. That low came in at $24.80. I'd actually give it a bit more room and go the other side of the Jan 17th low, which is actually the low for the year. So $24 pretty much bang on the low for the year in silver. So if I was a buyer now at 26-ish, that's where my stop would be going on the silver trade. And I think if we did lose $24 an ounce, I think the risk is then it does start to look as if the trend, this uptrend, is struggling. You know, I think we can forgive one break below the trend line, but if we break again and take out the low for the year and start setting fresh lows for the year, then clearly, you know, I think sentiment has shifted, and then we have to start eyeing up these, what is it, September lows 21.65 and the November lows down about 21.85, that sort of area. So overall, I think it's quite a boring market still at the moment, but the bias is still up. My medium-term target would be for a run back up to those highs that were only a month ago, don't forget, just above $28. And after that, if it can build some momentum, targeting 30. And I think, you know, 30 is still a big long-term level for silver. If we can break 30, then things look a lot more interesting, I think, for the rest of the year. But I'm not going to get too ahead of myself and start looking for $55 an ounce just yet when it comes to silver. So for now, at least, I'm happy to stick with our existing positions. They're slightly underwater, but my stops are the other side of the lows for the year. So we've got a couple of trades on with the usual £250 risk per trade. I don't want to go adding to those positions. I think it's a good rule of thumb to not add to losing positions. I do like adding to positions when they're going in my favor. Clearly, those two aren't just yet. So let's see what happens over the next few weeks. Can silver finally build some sort of sustainable momentum, have an initial push to 28, then we can start looking at the possibility of $30 an ounce. That's it for the update in silver. Let's hope it gets a bit more interesting as the year goes on. That trend, I think, is still up, but we'll see. We'll see if it can actually pick up some momentum. But for now, from me, David Jones and Capital.com, we'll leave things there. Good luck with your trading. For more trading videos just like this, please subscribe to our channel.